I'm Jason, part of Constellations here, opening for Mae in March, and this is our gear. First, this is my, it's a 1977 ES335 in that stunning walnut finish. I've got stock pickups in here. It's got the stock coil split that year, which is something I thought was cool. Came from the factory that way. As far as replacement stuff, it's had a refret. I've got repro tuners on there. And then I know that one of my pots was replaced. I believe it was the bridge pickup volume pot. But other than that, all of the circuitry, all that's original. Got a new bridge and a bone nut. But everything else is stock, man. This thing just feels good. And really for how old it is, like it's in great condition. It's super clean. So yeah, so for a long time, I was using actually a Telecaster Fender, like those thin line Rishu with the wide range humbuckers. Recently got this as a gift actually from my girlfriend. I guess it was November now, so about 5 months I've been playing this. This has been my dream guitar for as long as I can remember. So I'm stoked to be using it. I'll probably keep playing 335s. I just think they sound good, man. There's just something about it. So I've got Ernie Ball Super Slinkies on here, just the regular 10 gauge strings. So. Cool, so this is my pedal board. I've got it all on a pedal train, just a PT1. It starts, I'm going into the Polytune on the front end. From there, going into my Walrus Audio Deep 6 compressor. It's an 1176 type clone. I love this thing. It's got this blend knob on here, which makes it super usable. Doesn't squash too much. From there, I'm going into my double barrel by JHS. It's got a Morning Glory and a Tube Screamer 808 setting. I'm going into the Tube Screamer first. I'll use my Morning Glory kind of as an always on thing because I'm using a pretty clean amp. So I'll get that as kind of my bass breakup, and then when I want to kick it up a notch, I'll hit that 808 and really just kind of gain it up. From there, I'm going into this Hofner fuzz. I don't necessarily use this a ton live, but it's just a fun thing to have if I want, you know, almost like violin type sustain things. It's just like a $50 fuzz on Amazon, super cheap, but it sounds super cool. From there, I'm going into my volume pedal. This is just, you know, a VP Junior Ernie Ball. Out of the volume pedal, going into the Walrus Audio Julia. It's a chorus vibrato. It's got this cool mix knob where I can kind of toggle between chorus and vibrato, anywhere in between, and then this leg control makes it super usable. Kind of just like tilts it off axis in a sense. A couple different waveforms. Super cool pedal. So from there, going into the Cloud 9 reverb pedal by Sky Pedals. This actually turned into the JHS Alpine now. But this is a V1 version of that, and it's kind of got, you know, I use it as like an always on, and then I've got kind of an infinity mode, if you will, where it just kind of like blooms and gets fat. From there, I'm going into my delay section. First into the Strymon L cap, which is a tape delay, and I use that live for slapback, and then I've got this hold function on there where it just kind of like infinitely repeats. And then from there, going into the Boss DD20. And particularly live right now, we're using this for the reverse delay setting. We just got it tuned into a BPM. And then there's this section of a song where it's got the reverse delay, which is super cool. From there, going into the Old Blood Noise Procession Reverb. Super cool reverb. It's got kind of all these tricks up its sleeve. This hold switch, which will just make it go forever. I've got 3 different effects, either flange, auto-wah, or tremolo that I can filter into the reverb. And then I can also, if I just throw it all the way up, it'll just go forever like that as well. So we use that for kind of looping and, again, just kind of big washy parts. I'm using a T1M tap switch for my DD20. To tap that in, but then from the procession I go up into my 360 looper. And I've got a couple drones in different keys that we use for like transitions during sets and things like that. And so that's pretty much the board, man. We're using Runway audio cables exclusively. Our friends Austin there hooked us up with those, and I've got the board wide with those, as well as, you know, in between guitar and amp. So yeah, so I'd say the pedal that defines my tone the most, I'd say, is the JHS double barrel there. It's just a super versatile drive pedal, just having the option to either run one at a time or stack them, and I can choose which one is first in the chain. I've got bright switches, I've got 3 different clipping modes on the Tube Screamer, and it's just super versatile. I've had this pedal probably the longest of any of these through many different amps, and it just kind of works with everything, so that's kind of my consistent drive sound. So the amp here, I'm using a 1974 Fender Silverface Deluxe Reverb. I bought this and it was dead stock down to the speaker, the tubes, caps, everything. Obviously not super safe, so I switched that over. I got a full recap, got the power cable upgrade, and then what else? And then a retube as well. So it's still got the original speaker on it, but this thing sounds super good. It's a workhorse. So before this amp, I was playing a Matchless Clubman actually, which is, you know, an AC style amp. It's got 12x7 into EF86 in the preamp, so it's super bright, nice picky, but my lead guitar player Cole over there is kind of playing a similar style amp, so I wanted to switch them up, and I had always wanted to go vintage. So the Fender just has like a super round, kind of fat tone, and I play mostly rhythm guitar, and so it just works really well. Like complements the other guitar in the band like super nicely. So.
Hey, I'm Cole Sutter. I'm the lead guitar player for Constellations, and this guy is my main guitar right now. It's a Gibson 339 custom shop. I threw a Bixby on it about a month ago, but I don't know, it plays really well. And it's got Gibson Classic humbuckers, I believe. And I'm using Elixir strings. They're just 10s, but they seem to last the longest for me. So I tend to stay on the bridge pickup here with the volume pretty much all the way up. I roll the tone back gradually throughout the set. Every now and then I'll switch to in between both pickups, and I'll roll the tone back probably to about 7 or so here, just for different tones throughout the set. So I've almost always played Gibsons. I remember when I was a kid just walking into Guitar Center and I'd look at the wall at the top and see the Gibsons and be like, that's what I want to play one day. So now that's where I'm at, and I like them because I can clip my amp really hard, which is something I do with this band. Just allows me to push the amp as hard as I can and get it to clip the way I want it to. So yeah. So this is kind of my backup right now. It's a Gibson Les Paul Standard in Desert Burst. This has Burstbrucker Pro pickups in it, so it's a little bit different than my 339. As in, I think it's a little bit brighter, and I keep the settings about the same. Still Elixir 10s on it, but yeah, it's my backup right now. Okay, so everything's going into this. This is a disaster area DPC 8EZ. And it gives me presets. It's a true bypass looper. I control everything from it. It's really awesome. Going through the chain, the first thing I have is my Barber compressor. I normally keep it pretty hot. And then I go to my RC booster, which I'll turn on gradually, but I keep the volume pretty high on this thing, just so I can hit the amp harder and try and clip it more. And then I go into my Timmy here, which it's been my main drive for a couple years now, and I really like the sound I get from this. And then I go into my volume pedal here, which is an Ernie Ball modded by JHS. So then I go into this guy here, which is my JHS Emperor. It's a vibrato chorus. It sounds really cool. I use it on a lot of stuff. And then I have my Diamond tremolo, which it's just a really basic tremolo. It sounds really nice. It's analog. And then I go into my delays here. So I have a Giga delay and a Line 6 DO4, which is modded by JHS. It has a hi-fi mod, which kind of raises the volume a bit. So I use this as a boost for a lot of our set. I like to have them both on at the same time, and I control them with this guy down here. It's a time traveler, and it allows me to keep my BPMs in there, and I can scroll through during the set and keep them synced up to the same BPM and use different rhythmic variations with either one to play with each other. And then the last thing I have is the Big Sky, which I have a lot of really big pad sounds for this band, and I just use it for big reverbs. So that's about it. So really my delays are the main thing that I think defines the tone that I use. I use a lot of delay, and I talked about clipping the amp. So I like to keep my delays like really high, so when I push the amp really hard, I get a clipping sound out of the amp. I think that's a big part of my sound, at least. Alright, so this is pretty new for me. It's a Bad Cat Black Cat 30R head and 212 cab. It took me a while to get used to it, but right now I'm really loving it. It's just very clear, both when I'm using a lot of gain and when I get really clean too. It just cuts through really nice, and it does everything that I want it to. So I had a Dr. Z Maz 18 before, and obviously I jumped up to a 30 watt amp instead of the 18. I really liked the Dr. Z, but it wouldn't get clean for me. So I jumped up to this guy, hoping that I could get both the overdriven sounds that I wanted and the clean sounds, and that's exactly what I got out of it.
Hey, I'm Aaron. I'm the drummer for Constellations, and I'm going to show you my kit that I have. It's a 1968 Ludwig Super Classic in Champagne Gold Sparkle. I got this only about like 2 months ago or so, so it's new to me, but obviously not new to the world. I got it because primarily I wanted like a more versatile kit. I have this tuned super low right now, real low, real punchy. I use coated heads, keep the kick drum really, really loose tuned. Yeah, and then this is my snare drum. I actually built this in high school. It's a 5-ply Keller maple shell that I bought, just the shell, sanded it, stained it, drilled it, and then bought all the hardware separate. And honestly, I can use it for whatever I need to use it for. I can get it real low and real loose for more like laid-back indie stuff, or I can tune it really high, get a big crack out of it. The way I tune it right now is I put these top lugs really tight, and then the bottom I loosen a lot, which is why it's kind of wrinkled over here, and it gives it a real dead sound, which really works well with our music. And so the snare drum is 6.5 by 14, pretty standard, bigger snare drum size. My kick drum is 22 by 14. High tom is 13 by 9, and floor tom is 16 by 16. So bigger sizes. Kick drums are pretty normal size, but it gives it that big punchy tone that I want. So on my snare, I've been going Remo for pretty much the past several years. I got a Power Stroke P4, real deep obviously, but it has that attack and pretty rigid, and I can hit it pretty hard, and it lasts for a good while. Toms, I've been using Ambassador X's, coated on both of them. On the bottom, I have Evans EC2 clear heads. They're a little bit thicker and not as many overtones, which is good for resonant head. I don't have to dampen them as much. And then my kick drum, the back I have a stock Ludwig head, and then on the front I've got a Evans EMAD clear head with the medium dampening ring on the front. So for my hi-hats, I've got a Dream 16-inch Dream contact crash on top, and I don't know if you can see that, Dream 16-inch Energy hat crash on the bottom. Pretty clear, but pretty big too. For my left crash, I have a 20-inch Zildjian K dark thin crash. Then for my ride, I've got a 24-inch K-Lite ride. So it's a really cool contrast. I can crash on this, ride as much as I want, or I can ride on it. And then this crash it just really cuts through compared to the ride, which is what I was looking for when I was purchasing them. So specific for our band and some other stuff that I do, I have these Rototoms that I acquired pretty recently. We just recorded them in our EP, and I just figured I should go ahead and buy some. So I tune them pretty low, and we usually mic them live, and I don't obviously hit them that much, but when I do, try to be tasteful with them. It just adds kind of like an 80s vibe to it. So I've got like the big punchy drums, but I have the higher Rototoms. So I've got this Tackle instrument supply bag. I also use that as my drum key. It goes right here on my keychain, and it's got a little case, really convenient. Definitely recommend this company. Awesome. Sticks I use, pretty standard, just Vic Firth 7A hickories. A bit lighter than 5As, a little bit shorter too. I've just always liked lighter sticks. I think it's easier on the drums, and I can just move them around a bit easier.
I am Gideon Boley. I'm playing bass with Constellations. And this is my American P bass. This is actually fairly new. It's 2016. And I just have some round wounds on this, just some Ernie Ball, regular slinkies, just kind of your classic American P bass pickups. The new P basses are cool because you can get the string through body kind of on the back, and you can get a little more sustain. So I've been liking that. I have a pair of flat wounds in here. I use them for some other things, but for these guys with the rock sound, the round ones really kind of cut through and give you the punchy sound. So I mean, I love like 70s music and 60s music, and that's kind of like a lot of that rock stuff is kind of pre-jazz bass. So I just love that kind of that dead, low-end, punchy P bass sound. Whereas the jazz bass is kind of a little too trebly for what I like to do. I like something that sits in the mix well, and I feel like the P bass kind of gives almost a chorus effect when it sits in a mix. Yeah, so I'm not really using a whole lot of pedals for this rig. Kind of just getting a clean sound. So this is just a polytune. Using that works great. It's a little cheaper than the Boss tuner. I got a felt pick for softer songs, and I just got a Dunlop .88 pick, and that's kind of what I use most of the time. It just gives it a nice, bright, cut through, but still kind of full P bass tone. So I'm playing through that SVT Classic up on the stage there. It's an all-tube 350 watt head through a 4x10. It's an early 2000s model. Really love it. It's really loud. It kind of does everything I would need a bass amp to do.
Cool, thanks for checking out all our gear today, guys. You can find us on Instagram at Constellations Band, Facebook at Facebook/Constellations Music Official, and then we are on Spotify as well. We just dropped 2 new songs, a song called Stopwatch and a song called Blue. Be sure to check those out. Thanks for joining us today.